So welcome to the node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for July 27th, 2022. We'll follow the agenda that was in the issue generated in the repo, which was issue number 1264. But before we get started, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share?
18.x release yesterday. Thank you, Danielle, and everybody else.
I'll echo those thanks. I guess it's also worth mentioning, we're still working on a location for a collaborator summit at the same time as NodeConf EU, looking for a location in Dublin the couple days before. So if you're planning on heading out there, just keep that in mind, or even if you just wanted to come for the collaborator summit. That's still trying to finalize the location, but hopefully we'll do that soon. Oops, that's not helpful. 1, 2. Okay, if there's any other updates, announcements, any CPC updates, Rich?
No, it's a working session this week. Yeah, so no update.
Yeah, I'll say
there's the election for the board seat that you're vacating.
Yep.
I believe I know Matteo is running. I think Giuseppe is running, and a few other people, Emily and so. But those are the two people that are leap to mind that are node people. And if I'm forgetting someone else, I apologize.
Okay, yeah, I think that ought to be closing not too long from now. In terms of the working session, it was a retrospective on the event. So that should be like I think a published version of that should be coming out soon as well. And just so people are sort of in the loop thinking about it, there is some thought of doing maybe smaller events or co-locating with other events as opposed to having one big event. So I think that'll be being discussed at like the program committee that's open for people to join. So if you have strong feelings on that front, that's a good place to get involved. Okay, let's move on then to Node.js Node. So the first one that was tagged for the agenda was ruthlessly marked tests that fail frequently as flaky. That's 43955. It was opened by Matteo, and he added it to the TSC agenda. There is some discussion in there, and I think the key suggestion that the reason it would be marked for the TSC is like, can we be more aggressive? Should we be more aggressive about marking things flaky in the CI?
There's nothing stopping any individual from being very aggressive about it. Like you don't need TSC approval to be ruthless. You just got to do it.
I think some might be worried that might be considered as abuse.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would be a little concerned if we're going to mark something that is always failing as flaky. That's a bit of a red flag for me personally. But otherwise, I don't know. I mean, if it fails 30% of the time and nobody realistically is going to get to the bottom of it anytime soon, sure, mark it.
Yeah, I guess it's I don't know if there was a suggestion of like auto marking or something. That's something that would concern me. But certainly somebody looking at it and saying, hey, this is failing a good amount of time, there's no reason to believe it's anything more than flaky, and then marking it as flaky seems totally reasonable.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that an automated flaky marking process is going to be any less flaky than our tests. So And like as Ben and possibly others pointed out, a lot of failures are infrastructure related, and marking them as flaky will not help. So,
What might be worth mentioning is while we don't intend to have an automated tool to mark things as flaky. I know that Antoine has been working on my suggestion of having better tooling around identifying flaky tests and the degree to which they are flaky. So I believe he's adding options to the test runner to see if a test really is flaky or if it's failing deterministically. And also, sorry, the other one I forgot right now, but there are two options essentially that allow you to get better insight into how much tests are failing that are marked as flaky.
Antoine, do you want to add something to what Tobias just said?
Yeah, the other one was when a test is failing that is not marked as flaky, we retry 10 times to see if it's a fluke or it's failing.
Right, it still fails though in that case, right? It just reports whether it's flagged. Okay, that's great.
So this has landed for GitHub Actions, but not for Jenkins CI yet.
Though I think we're kind of missing the point here. I think the point Matteo is trying to make is that it's very difficult to land PRs right now because the CI is so flaky. And his way of resolving that is asking someone to just mark everything that is basically failing as flaky.
Yeah, I've been a fan of that for weeks since the situation has been quite bad recently, especially due to that keep alive PR landing with failing tests. And there has been back pressure when we try to revert it. So the situation has been quite bad. And we should definitely, I myself, when I see a test failing, I don't necessarily, and I know it's been failing for weeks, I don't necessarily open a PR to mark it as flaky, just because it's simpler to resume CI since I know it's a known flake instead of opening a PR to mark it as flaky. But that's probably what we should be doing, opening PRs, marking those as flaky when we know they've been failing for weeks and are flakes and not any known issues.
I think part of the problem right now is our backlog is so big. Nobody's going to go through, and open 50 PRs marking various tests flaky and motivating why they are flaky.
Can I just back up for a second? Like, once it's marked as flaky, that essentially disables the test, right? Like, you can then land CI without that test needing to pass. So So I feel like what most of us are doing, which is like, okay, the build failed, click resume again, click resume again.
Yep.
Oh, great, I have green and yellow, let's land it. That at least means that's at least better than if some additional test had been marked flaky, because like me being able to land it meant that some test that is flaky but isn't marked as flaky, like it failed 4 times, but then it passed the 5th time I clicked retry or resume, like it did pass, you know what I mean? So there was at least one pass, whereas once it's marked as flaky, it might never pass and we've merged in anyway. I know we don't want to necessarily encourage tell people to retry or even automate the retry, but I wonder if it's maybe a less bad solution than just like basically turning off lots of tests.
There is the problem that would spam the CI with, then no job would ever be able to run because we keep wasting resources rerunning stuff unnecessarily.
I mean, we're already doing it.
Yeah, but and it's a problem. That's
Antoine has his hand up as well.
Yeah. So that was the suggestion from Tobias that I was talking about. So the changes that I've landed on Node make that when a test is flaky, it's the CI will keep retrying until the test pass. Well, it will give up around 100 times. Yeah. So the idea with this change is we can mark a lot of tests as flaky without compromising our security, hopefully, without needing to resume full CIs as well.
So that's actually in the test suite itself. It says, oh, that one failed and reruns it.
Yeah, if it's in the flaky list,
Right.
and there's a failure, it will retry, and there's another failure, retry, until it gets a passing result.
I mean, 100 seems really high, but I mean, I trust
Yeah,
you.
but so the idea,
At least it's rerunning a single test and not like the whole pipeline. So.
It stops at the first successful attempt. So it would mean the CI will refuse the flaky test if it fails for 100 times in a row.
I mean, I would think that you could just have every test, like run all the tests, say 10 of them fail, rerun all 10 up to 20 times for each of those 10. And then if you don't get, you know, if you have at least one that still failed after 10 attempts, then the pipeline has failed. And you don't need to track which ones are flaky or not, you know.
But that would introduce new flakes, right? Which is not what we want.
Yeah, we don't want, yeah.
How would it introduce new flakes?
Well, if it ignores any test, regardless of any pre-existing markers that fail only like 50% of the time, and then sure it won't.
Oh, like you
that's
want
what happened
some
with
tests to be expected to pass the first time every time?
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
what difference does it make, though?
Well, that's what happened in the Keep Alive PR, and I'm sorry I keep referring to that particular PR, but it's been a major issue for days. And essentially, there were five CI runs on that PR. The first four of them all failed the same test, and the fifth one didn't by chance. So the PR was merged, and at that point, it started failing CI for every other PR, for every other build on all branches. So it introduced a flake because someone reran it until it passed, and that's what would happen.
Yeah, I mean, we want people to look at failures. You know, if you added a new test and it failed, and you had to run it 4 times to get it through, that we don't want. Hopefully, that's why rerunning automatically. Yeah, you wouldn't want.
So having this retry mechanism be limited to a predefined list prevents someone from sneaking in a flaky test, because like unless they add their new test to the flaky list right from the get-go is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say sneaking it in, but like accidentally having it go in because they add a test. They don't even.
I meant sneaking it in, like they knew it was flaky, so they put it on the flaky list right from the get-go in the original PR.
Right. They'd have to, if they want to do that, they'd have to do that. But otherwise, yeah, they wouldn't, like if I submitted a new test that was flaky, hopefully I might see it was flaky versus not knowing that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing what you got, Antoine. That sounds like a great solution.
I almost wonder, it makes me think of the reverse. Could we tell if a test is new? And if it is, run it 10 times and it only passes if all 10 times it passes. We
could technically, I thought about that too. But we already run all new tests essentially 100 times since we run all tests on, I don't know how many different configurations and platforms. And so the additional work of identifying actually new or modified tests. Right. And then we still wouldn't, if there's a single test that tests a single feature and someone modifies that feature, we wouldn't have the same guarantee.
Well, but I feel like it's much more likely to be flaky on the like less popular platforms. Like I feel like I never get flaky tests on like the Linux, you know, CI run. It's always like whatever Smart OS or, you know, the operating systems that are not like very widely available. You know what I mean? So I think there would be some value in being like, okay, the new test has to pass 10 times in a row on Smart OS or, you know, on each one of the environments, you know, each one of the OSs.
That's fair. So we could definitely, if someone modifies a particular test, regardless of whether it's added or just modified, we could definitely run that test. Like our existing stress test can run it hundreds or thousands of times, but we could probably add tooling to run modified test files more than other.
So is there a like an action question here? If that change is landed, which is going to, I guess, continue to run them if they're marked flaky, I guess that helps us survive ones which are no, I guess it still has to be marked flaky, right? Before we change anything.
Yeah, I mean, these automatically rerunning, I'm a little skeptical, but I can neither say yes or no. But the immediate problem now is that it's difficult to land PRs. So if we have to find a solution that is like somebody can fix this situation rather sooner than later.
On anecdotal level, it's much easier like this week, maybe since Monday or something. I've even had first try CI turning green, so I don't know, somebody landed a fix maybe.
I just wanted to ask one more question. So Antoine, if it's marked flaky, it keeps running them to see if it does pass. And then I guess that lets us know if it just never passed. Like if it never passed in those 10 runs, would the build fail, or is it still just yellow?
It would fail.
Okay.
If I didn't screw up, yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
the
in that
idea.
case, we may actually get better indicator of something that's truly broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, but the situation right now though is that, and correct me, please correct me if I'm wrong about this. I thought a flaky test didn't have to pass for CI to pass. Like it would just give you the yellow warning. But that flaky test never had a pass. So if your thing lands and says, oh, I'm going to rerun the flaky one 10 times, but it must pass at least one of those 10, then there might be tests that we have marked as flaky right now that simply do not pass ever. And now all of a sudden, once your changes land, we can never land anything because
If we have a
some
test,
of these tests aren't just flaky, they're just failing. Like they always fail.
Yeah.
that
Yeah, we
if we
can
have a test
disable
that
it.
is flaky, that is marked it, that in fact always fails, that should fail the build. A flaky test should
Right,
not
but that might be in there. That might be
fail.
the case right now, and we just don't know it because it's marked as
No,
flaky.
otherwise we'd never have a green build. We'd never have a green build, but we get green builds once in a while.
Oh, okay.
But I think that improvement's good. And if we did run into that, we should disable the test. And this improvement makes it, I think, lower impact to mark things flaky is kind of what I was now understanding, right? Because it's.
But if it's
Yeah,
only
that was. Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
if it's only considering things that are already marked flaky, I mean, the issue at the moment is that tests are flaky which aren't marked flaky. Jeffrey is right. If the test is marked flaky, then tests will be yellow. That are failed that are already marked flaky. So part of the reason that CI has been failing a lot is because there are tests which are not marked flaky which are failing frequently in the CI.
Yeah, but hopefully with the change, we would be less, we would mark more tests as flaky because it doesn't cost as much.
Yeah, that was the idea behind it. And I mean, just the word flaky, we should, if we can mark it as flaky, that's flaky, then we have a problem in our definition and we need to use different terms for, like if a test is flaky and it has been for weeks, we should be able to mark it as such, and or we have to use different terminology. So I don't think, I think Rich was right from the very beginning. Everyone is free to open PRs, and I would say I'd be happy about any PR that marks tests flaky that are known to be flaky for weeks. So there's not much we have to decide right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and we should make people feel if there's something slowing people down from doing that, that's what we should try and fix. The message should be, if it is flaky, go ahead, mark it flaky.
Hmm.
The other thing
I'm-
maybe would be is if like people think it's so bad, we want a one time, let's just go and mark them all.
I think that's kind of the situation. I haven't landed so many PRs lately, so I can't say, but that's the sense I get from the issue.
I feel like it's just been a couple bad weeks due to a few changes that landed and increasing number of flake results tremendously, which should maybe affect our process in the future. For example, we should have reverted set change we should have reverted it and not tried to fix it for days, which wasted so much of our time, that of contributors. And I know of more than one collaborator who's been very off-put by this and whose contributions have definitely suffered from not being able to run CI and not being able to merge PRs. So maybe it should affect how we do things, but maybe our new flaky test setup is going to be enough to change that.
So it sounds like there's two things we could say, hey, let's declare bankruptcy, like suggested, and close them all. But I think the suggestion is it was bad, it is now better, so we don't necessarily need to do that, but people are free to mark things flaky if there are still ones that are problems.
Yeah, that's my understanding. If they are known to have been flaking for weeks, then I don't see a problem marking them as flaky. We can't really revert any PRs that were merged weeks or months ago. So
Yeah, and then the one other thing that you'd mentioned you'd already thought of was if we could run it multiple times when they're new, that sounds like a way we could potentially prevent adding flaky tests. Any other thoughts or things we need to do on this one before we move on to the next issue? Okay, if not, the next one is source lib print source map error source on demand. This is number 43875, and looking at the issue, the question seems to be, are we willing to land this in node D18 with a do not backport flags for V16? The reason the question is there is that I think it's breaking to the format of stack traces, and if anybody else has been more involved, please jump in. But it's breaking to sort of the format of the stack traces, but from some of the discussion, we often don't consider that to be part of breaking changes because for a number of different reasons, and there's a fair amount of support for doing that.
Yeah, I believe we should just remove the Zenver major label and not handle it as being Zenver major.
For the benefit of people listening to the recording or watching the stream, Antoine says +1 to, I believe, what Ruben was just suggesting.
Yeah, correct. Usually we don't count error messages as part of the stable API. Don't think it's a major change.
I'm +1 as well. Does anybody have any objections to that?
All right, I'll just remove the label in that case.
Yeah, maybe just add a comment that it was discussed in the TSC meeting as well and nobody objected, so you're moving ahead. Okay, the next one is Node.js I18N. I would like to become a member, number 6112. Rich, I know you were looking at this one.
Yep, I took the TSC agenda label off of it. It's we should or I should or something. I'm handling it, but we need to get our access to crowd and back. That should stay, as it's a place where people can, it provides valuable functionality. It lets people provide translations for and retranslations of our API docs, which currently we don't have another place to host. Eventually, it would be nice to get integration so that it can be integrated into our actual hosted API docs on the website. But for now, workflow is totally broken because nobody seems to have the administrative privileges. I pinged Ben, I hope I'm not mispronouncing his last name, Michelle, open source, to see if, because they seem to have elevated privileges. I also asked Richard if the Crowdin bot credentials might help us get administrative access to the Crowdin instance, but I didn't think that was the case. And I don't think it's the case either. Go ahead, Richard. Please clarify.
I don't believe Build has any credentials for anything to do with Crowdin. So even the bot,
Okay.
I don't think that's owned by. There's nothing that I know of that Build knows about. So wherever that is, it's not in anything owned by Build that I know of.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of that Build might have is a token for the GitHub bot, but even that might not exist. You were saying something, I'm sorry.
I know I looked for that same thing when I was doing the renames of the main primary branches, because I couldn't find anybody and I didn't find anything. So that's my understanding as well, that we don't have any access to that.
Okay, so what I might do is try to contact Crowdin, the company, on behalf of, and see maybe escalate to the foundation to see if like they can get involved to help us out, to see if we can get the administrative password reset to something that they can give to me or someone else, who some other highly trusted person. But point is, I'm handling it there, and I don't think there's anything for the TSC to do unless somebody else wants to really jump in and get involved on this.
I had one, not only semi-related, but you mentioned the integration into our API docs. And I know we had the discussion with the foundation staff last week in terms of them offering to provide some support on our website. Just wonder if, is that a place where we'd see high value and maybe it's worth leveraging that, or?
I don't know.
Anyway, just thought I'd throw that as a thought, but not really related to the issue itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us to the end of the issues we had tagged for the agenda. I am going to find reopening the issue itself, because I know there was some updates on the strategic initiative there. And just going down there. So in terms of the Shadow Realm strategic initiative, Legendcast has updated that, with Joey's helpful reviews, he's finishing up the design doc and started working on distinguishing per isolate per environment properties like two issues, 43.802 and 43.781. I'll say on the next 10 strategic initiative, we have a session on TypeScript, really, and focused on potential sort of not integrating TypeScript, but making it easier to use TypeScript with Node tomorrow. So if people are interested in that, check out the issue in the next 10 repo. There've been some good discussions and different issues and stuff. And so this is a hope to get people together and agree on maybe our higher level way forward, or higher level requirements versus specific implementations. And then I'm going to flip over to the other list of strategic initiatives, just to see. Just a sec. Oops. Oh, button. So core promise APIs, Antoine, anything on that one?
No, nothing this week.
Okay. And I don't think we have anybody else. I will say on single executable applications, I think we'll see an issue opening in the admin repo to start a team that's going to talk to be able to focus on single executable applications and potentially a repo to go along with that, to sort of investigate some of the key issues and have a place to have those discussions and stuff like that. So that's something on that front that is likely to happen. So I think that takes us to the end of the agenda. Is there anything else that we should talk about before we close out for today? If not, thanks for everybody's time and everybody who's been watching on the live stream. We will see you in GitHub and next time.